Hey guys, it's Aman and Christina from the Our Rich Journey podcast, where we answer your questions about making, saving, and investing money for financial independence and retiring early. Today, we don't have necessarily a money question, but well, I guess it is a money question.
I feel like they're always money.
Yes.
Somehow it's money.
Yes, it all ties back to money in one way or another, right? Money makes the world go round, is that
Perhaps.
Well, this question is about the golden visa and whether or not investing in the golden visa is a good idea or not.
Right. Okay.
So it is a money question.
It is a money question.
It's really a Portugal question.
Yes.
So that's what you really have to be asking yourself when you're talking about making a decision like this.
Right. So let's
Is
play the
Portugal the place for you?
So let's play the question first.
My wife and I are considering purchasing the Portugal Golden Visa at the €280,000 real estate investment level. As current American expats living abroad full-time in Southeast Asia, it would be a valuable call option to live and work in the European Union and have a second citizenship. With the euro down about 13.5% this year against the US dollar, we feel this is as good of a deal and entry point the program will ever provide. If we're able to identify a suitable investment with a reasonable ROI, would you encourage us to pursue this opportunity? Although this would be a deviation from our current FIRE investment plan of low-cost index funds and ETFs, it would provide invaluable lifestyle benefits and options for us to permanently live abroad with less restrictions. Thank you for your insights.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's talk about what the Golden Visa is very quickly. So the Golden Visa, they have them in several different countries. We'll focus on what it means in Portugal. But in Portugal, they have a Golden Visa program where you can invest in different things in Portugal. And by meeting a certain investment threshold, you can get a residency visa because of your investment. Now, there's the most popular one is investing in real estate, right? But there's other things like creating different jobs or putting money in different accounts. But most people, when they think about the Golden Visa in Portugal, they think about investing in real estate. But I do want to clarify, because the caller had mentioned citizenship. It's actually a residency visa. You don't become a citizen of Portugal by investing in this Golden Visa scheme. You get residency for it.
And the residency is kind of unique. The Golden Visa residency, unlike other types of residencies here in Portugal, there's no restriction on the amount of time you have to spend in Portugal. It gives you the Portuguese residence, which really gives you access to the rest of the EU. And a lot of people use the Golden Visa in order to be able to live in multiple European countries, not just Portugal. And it sounds like this expat, he doesn't necessarily have a goal of ultimately living here in Portugal. It sounded like he wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to invest in Portugal, but he also had his sights set on maybe just having the freedom to maneuver around Europe with his Portugal residency card.
Right. I will say one tiny distinction. What you said, there is a small restriction about being in Portugal, and I believe it's 7 days.
Oh, yes, you're right.
So now if you get a regular residency visa, it's much longer, right? But people who are investors that want access to freely maneuver within the EU, the Schengen area, is that if you become a resident in Portugal, you're able to do that. But sometimes people don't necessarily want to move to Portugal and live in Portugal to establish a standard residency visa. So the Golden Visa is a way to do that. A lot of people can do that because they're investing from outside of the country and they have this desire to be able to move throughout the EU because of that.
Yes. So they invest in a piece of property, for example, and then they have this access throughout Europe.
Right. One thing I will say is that there's a process. It's not necessarily like right immediately after you purchase this property, you have this residency where you have access to everything. It's actually a longer process to get approved for a Golden Visa residency as opposed to a standard, for example, D7 residency visa, the standard way, which is by moving here. But one thing I would caution people at, I do think it is a great benefit for investors that don't necessarily want to live here, but that have access. And this is what this caller is talking about. I think that's a great way to develop residency for that purpose. The one thing I would caution people about, and this is from our own perspective, is that we actually moved here we rented for an entire year in order to get a lay of the land here in Portugal. If you just plan on purchasing something from abroad, if you don't want to come here and take the time to find property, you may regret that.
You'll overpay.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just come right out and say it. When you have a program that sets a threshold for how much you have to spend in order to get the residency, people or sellers here in Portugal price their properties at that price level to attract people that are just interested in getting the golden visa. Now, I'll be absolutely honest with you. I am not a fan of the golden visa program for several reasons, but two reasons in particular. One is that people overpay for properties that aren't justifiably worth 280. And I mean, at one point the golden visa was 500,000. Well, it's still 500,000 in certain areas.
They have different requirements. So in different areas, it can be lower, or if you purchase a property that requires renovation, where you're going to be renovating the property, there's different requirements. So the one that he's identified is a 280 threshold. With that being said, again, by investing abroad, if you don't plan on coming here, it's very likely that you'll be overpaying for a property, or also that you don't end up getting the property that you think you were purchasing. I mean, you will get the physical property, but sometimes the photos, a lot of times you can see really great photos, but then you go to a property and the photos haven't been updated in however long. There's mold throughout the house, there's different issues, or your neighbors are a nightclub, or there's so many different things that I think that if you're not physically here checking out the property, it can be sort of detrimental to your investment.
Okay, so there's the price tag of these properties that are marketed specifically as golden visa properties. I mean, the agents will come right out and say, hey, you can get your golden visa with this particular property. It's a good investment. The other issue that I have with the golden visa is that it pushes up property prices for the locals. And I don't think that's right. I mean, folks coming in with large sums of money and just paying for a piece of property just because they can, it really does affect the local population that's also looking for affordable housing. Now, fortunately, it's not a great deal of people that are doing this, but it still has an impact on the local real estate market. So that has to be said. So if you're coming to Portugal with the intentions of getting a golden visa, really reflect on the impact that it's going to have, right? Because there are better ways, personally, I think, to get residency in Portugal that don't require you to get a golden visa.
But I can tell you one thing, though. I can tell you a way to make it manageable, which is people that are investing in the property just for the purpose of getting this residency where they can access the EU, and they buy it at that threshold, right? It's good for the seller who sells the home. It's good for the buyer because the buyer gets this access to the EU that they wouldn't otherwise have. But the buyer, the investor, still has this property. They still have something that they need to do with it. And to overcome this idea of driving up prices, if you keep it as a rental unit, a long-term rental unit at the rates that are consistent with the rates that locals are paying in Portugal, then that could do some good. I mean, we don't know what your plan is with the golden visa and what you plan on doing with the property.
If you plan on living in it, or
or if
you
plan on living in it. So there are ways that you can still contribute to Portugal by investing in the golden visa. One thing I would note also, because it relates to the idea of driving up prices with the golden visa, is the government has actually sort of acknowledged this because they recently modified the golden visa requirements. Before the golden visa, as it related to real estate, you could buy property anywhere within Portugal. As long as it met that threshold, you could qualify for the golden visa. But now the government has stopped that type of golden visa scheme in Porto, in Lisbon, other coastal areas and different areas in the Algarve. So those areas you can no longer buy property at that threshold to qualify for the golden visa. And that is in response to the housing prices being jacked up because of investors coming in and buying properties at generally above asking price.
Yeah. There was a part of this question that made me smile, and it was the fact that the US dollar is so strong right now in Europe and in the UK. And if it has ever been your dream to buy a property or move to Europe, this might be that opportunity that you've been waiting for, because home prices are just on the exchange rate alone, you're getting a huge discount. Now, if we end up going into a recession, which is highly anticipated in the next year here in Europe and in the UK, you may also get a double deal. First, you're going to get a great exchange rate, and then softening home prices. I mean, it could be the perfect storm for someone looking to relocate from the US to Europe.
Yeah. So that's our response to the Golden Visa. If you're interested in it, definitely do your research, and we highly recommend that you at least come here and do a thorough scouting of the different areas and the homes that you're considering, so you don't get stuck with something that you didn't really want to get stuck with in the first place. So if you guys have other questions about Golden Visa, about Portugal, and definitely about making, saving, investing money, financial independence, make sure that you send your questions to us. You can submit them at ourrichjourney.com/podcast. Make sure you send them to us so that we can include them in a future episode. But until then, we hope that you continue saving, making, and investing money, and we will see you in the next episode. Remember that we are not financial advisors, and the views expressed by us are solely for entertainment purposes. You must make responsible decisions, and that means making decisions based on the thorough, independent research that you conduct. Thanks for listening.